10 Sinister Trucker Tales, Exposed Secrets of Haunted Highways, Unexplained Nightmares. Emily's heart raced as she fielded call after call, the clock creeping past midnight. For most, the darkness held a dreamlike quality, but for her, it was a prison wrought with whispers of fright. She'd taken the late-night dispatcher gig reluctantly, each ring cutting into her fragile sense of security. Yet here she was, the pulse of a punching clock echoing through the living room of her quiet St. Louis home. Soft snores from her daughter wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, but that was the only warmth she felt. Outside, the world loomed ominously, shadows dancing in the moonlight. Rugged truckers filled her ears with far more unsettling tales than the regular banter. "You don't want to know what's out there, darlin'," one growled, trailing off into a silent stretch, the static loud and threatening. Another spoke of headlights reflecting off a ghostly figure, a woman standing alone under the overpass, her eyes empty, her mouth whispering unseen horrors. Each story grew darker, each voice dripping with trepidation. Emily was skeptical. Were they just trying to scare the new girl? But as the clock struck 2, fear snaked its way into every crevice of her mind. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she refocused on the dwindling calls, her blood turned ice when Tom's number flashed. His voice was frantic, distorted by the hiss of the line. "Emily, the woman, I see her, she's right here." The call went dead before she could respond, leaving her gasping for breath, her hands trembling as if they had become detached from reality. Goosebumps raced along her skin. The stories weren't just tales anymore, they had become her nightmarish reality. With anxiety eating at her insides, each rang call morphed into a weighted tape, a heavy burden. Writers recounted the feeling of being watched, eyes pinning them down from darkened side streets. The ghostly cries mingled with the hum of tires against asphalt, forming a chilling chorus enveloping the night. Emily found her voice wavering as she tried to reassure them, but with each story, her assurances felt weaker. The darkness seemed thicker now. She could almost see it creeping through the curtains, invading her sanctuary. Something was lurking just out of sight, something terrible, and when another call came in, she hesitated. Each name gained faces in her mind, families like hers left behind, hearts heavy with unanswered questions. The weight of their loss began to crush her chest. She dared glance outside, her heart thrumming, knowing she should be scared, really scared. Was that a figure, just beyond the streetlight? A flicker, and it was gone. Breaths caught in her throat. Would she become another tragic name, a whispered thread in a tapestry of disappearances? As dread entwined with her reality, the walls felt like they were closing in. Was it all just a story, or were the truths writhing beneath the surface of her quiet suburban night? The phone rang again, cutting through silence, and she knew she had to answer. But what would it reveal next? Safety, or the unraveling of everything she held dear? Emily picked up the phone, her pulse racing as the eerie silence pressed against her. "Dispatcher," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. But her brain was a flurry of chaotic thoughts. What happened to Tom? The woman? What if she haunted the very shadows at her doorstep? A gravelly voice crackled over the line. "This is Joe from Route 63. You gotta listen. She followed me. I swear, I saw her in my rear view." The desperation in Joe's tone sent a chill up Emily's spine. Confusion gripped her. Who was she? "Joe, slow down. Who did you see?" "That woman. Just up ahead, near the old bridge." "I can't go back there." His voice cracked. Emily could picture his eyes wide with panic, sweat slipping down his face as he gripped the steering wheel. "Joe, I need you to pull over. Find a spot that's safe and stay on the line. "I'll guide you," she urged, her heart pounding louder than the echoes of his breathing on the line. "No. You don't understand. She's not just out there. She's everywhere." The line buzzed ominously as Joe's voice wavered. Was that a scream? Emily's stomach twisted. "Joe. Come on, focus. Breathe." Silence lingered, thick and suffocating, until a distant, keening moan echoed through the receiver. The panic in Joe's voice returned, sharpening everything around her. "Emily, she looks like the line went dead." The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Her heart thundered, drowning out the silence that followed. What was wrong with this woman? A ghost? A warning, quick as lightning, Emily peered outside again. The street was shrouded in unsettling shadows, the flickering streetlights creating darting shapes like phantoms. They crept closer, drawing forth her deepest fear. The woman standing under the overpass, was she real? Her breath came shallow, realizing she had given away her safety to this unknown terror. Another call came through. She hesitated, knowing she should ignore it. Yet something inside propelled her to answer. "Dispatcher," she said, her voice strained. "Emily, please, help me. I can see her too." It was a different voice, shaky and frantic. "Get away from your window. You're in danger." "Who is this?" The dread coiling her insides began to unravel. "I'm a trucker, I was there. Last week. She's watching you. Move." A sudden jolt of icy terror shot through her. Without thinking, she stumbled toward the curtains, peeking around the edge just as the figure stepped into the lighted area. She was there, impossibly real. The woman's long dark hair dripped, and her empty gaze sent a wave of nausea through Emily. No longer a distant specter, this was a horrifying presence, one that resonated with those ancient tales from the truckers. Emily backed away from the window, feeling the air grow dense as shadows engulfed her home. "Who are you?" she whispered, trembling. The caller sounded desperate, his voice thick with terror. "You have to believe me. She wants your family next. Don't let her take you." In that instant, the lights flickered ominously. A scream echoed in the distance, then silence, thick and suffocating. Something creaked in the house, a soft sound barely breaking the tense atmosphere. Emily's heart sank as the realization struck her like ice. Her daughter was still in bed, blissfully unaware. "Stay away from the windows. Get somewhere safe," she screamed, her voice rising with urgency as she rushed toward her daughter's room, the shadows closing in relentlessly, promise of horror curling around her as she reached for the door. What awaited her beyond it could very well change everything. The call cut off just as she reached for the handle. What if it was too late? What was hidden behind that door? Emily's hand trembled on the doorknob. A bead of sweat trickled down her back, every instinct screaming for her to stop. She gripped the knob, but hesitated. The shadows seemed to thicken, gathering like a storm cloud, swirling around her feet. What if the woman was already inside? "Mom?" A small voice whispered from the darkness behind the door. It was Sarah. The sound sliced through Emily's fear like a knife. "I'm coming, baby." She swung the door open, heart racing, praying that her daughter was still safe. The room was dim, illuminated by only the moonlight filtering through the drawn curtains. There was Sarah, sitting up in bed, her teddy bear clutched close. "What is it?" "I heard screaming." "Stay here. Lock the door, and don't open it for anyone. Do you understand?" Sarah nodded, wide-eyed. A flicker of dread passed through Emily, but she turned and dashed back into the hallway. The anguished scream from earlier still echoed in her mind, chilling her to the bone. She needed to check the entrance. The door had been left ajar. As she approached, the very air felt electric, saturated with impending dread. She reached out, pushing the door wide to reveal the empty porch. Nothing. Just her front steps, bathed in unsettling moonlight. But somewhere, perhaps just beyond her line of sight, she sensed a shift. The air felt thick, agonizingly so, as though the universe itself was holding its breath. Every creak of the floorboards judged her, every whisper of wind told tales of the night. Suddenly, a crash shattered the stillness. Emily whipped around, her heart slamming against her ribs. From the kitchen something had fallen. She moved cautiously, every step deliberate, her body tense. As she stepped into the kitchen, the sight froze her in place. The pantry door was swinging open and shut, the sound high-pitched like a child's laughter twisted into something unrecognizable. The overhead light flickered violently, casting frenzied shadows across the walls. "Hello?" she called, voice barely above a whisper. "Is anyone there?" The laughter stopped. An icy shadow slithered through the room, wrapping around her throat. She gasped, breathless with fear. What if it wasn't a spirit watching her but something much worse? Suddenly, she remembered the trucker's warning. "She's not just watching you. She wants your family." It was then she saw the slivers of light blocked by a figure standing in the doorway. For a heartbeat, she thought it was Sarah. But then she noticed the disheveled hair, the pallid skin, the gaze fixed upon her. "No!" A voice snarled, low and guttural. It paralyzed her with fear, a voice that felt both alien and terrifyingly familiar. The woman took a step closer, her outline wavering like smoke. "You let them in. They're not the only ones who can come home." Panic washed over Emily as the realization hit. "Get away from my family." Too late, the figure hissed, stretching out a hand. Emily felt the air turn frigid, her breath vaporizing in front of her. In a fit of pure instinct, Emily lunged toward her phone, desperate to call for help. But the screen was dead, no light, no signal. Then she heard it, a faint tapping, rhythmic and deliberate, coming from the living room. It was as if a child was trying to enter. Fearing the worst, she dashed to the living room, but the sight before her made her wish she hadn't. There, at the doorway, her daughter stood, entranced, staring at the woman with wide, innocent eyes. "Sarah!" Emily cried. But Sarah didn't flinch, she just stood there, waiting. The woman's gaze shifted, locking onto Emily, the corners of her mouth curling into a malicious smile. "Let us play," she whispered, venomous words that seemed to echo in a profound silence. Emily's heart sank. What had she done? The walls closed in around her, silence filling every crevice, and the question loomed, was she too late to save her daughter? Before she could move, the kitchen light flickered once more, revealing shadows rising in every corner, spilling into the hall, all merging into that malevolent figure at the door. What now? Time felt suspended. Like a ready-strike moment, her breath shallow, pleading with each heartbeat. Behind her daughter, the shadows danced menacingly. The true horror of that night awaited its unveiling, and Emily knew in her gut the worst was yet to come. But what could she do to fight back? Would they escape the night? Would they stand against the terror that wanted to break in? Emily felt the world around her constrict, the shadows swirling like predators preparing to strike. Sarah still stood motionless, mouth agape in a silent cry that tore at Emily's very soul. The woman, the figure of her nightmares, loomed larger than life, insatiable hunger radiating from her in waves, wrapping around Emily's heart like a vice. "Move, Sarah!" she shouted, a desperate plea. But her daughter remained frozen, caught in the grip of some unseen force. The flickering light above threw eerie shapes across the walls, grotesque imitations of laughter insidiously echoing in Emily's mind. The woman stepped closer, gliding, as if the floor obeyed her command. "You should have stayed away," she crooned, her breath putrid and chilling, like a grave's whisper. What had she let in? The thought gnawed at Emily, intensifying her terror. "Get away from her!" Emily screamed again. Every fiber of her being screamed for action, but fear held her paralyzed. The sinister woman's finger pointed at Sarah, and the darkness seemed to pulse with anticipation, waiting for the next act in this unfolding nightmare. With the clarity of a fraying rope, Emily knew. It was a choice she had to make: would she stand and fight for her daughter, or would she succumb? The shadows loomed, stretching further toward Sarah, as if eager to drag her into an unfathomable abyss. "Please come back to me." Emily reached out to her child, fighting against the binding pressure of dread squashing her voice. She took a step forward, heart racing at the thought of the woman snatching Sarah away. Suddenly, a crack split the air. The front door wrenched open with explosive force, and a flood of icy wind rushed into the house. It was as if a portal had opened, ushering in a counter-narrative to the horror the dark gladly relinquishing its hold. In the chaos, Sarah blinked, the glaze over her eyes lifting. "Mom?" she whispered, and for that fleeting moment, reality felt solid. "Run!" Emily urged, moving toward her daughter, heart racing with a mix of terror and hope. But the woman's face twisted with fury, a terrible mix of disdain and desire. "No! She belongs with me." The woman lunged, darkness spilling over her, seizing the moment. Emily surged forward, diving toward Sarah, grabbing her wrist just as the woman's grasp twisted the air behind them like claws. In one bold move, Emily turned, pulling Sarah down toward the floor, and they both hit the ground hard. The shadows writhed above as the woman's rage simmered, threatening to engulf the room. Emily could feel the air shiver with hatred, but pushing beyond the darkness, she scooped Sarah into her arms, desperately clinging to her child. "Stay close. Don't let go." They started to scuttle backward against the wall, but just as it looked like they could escape, the woman's voice pierced through the growing tension. "You think you can contain me?" The once flickering lights dimmed to blackness, and an oppressive weight filled every corner, consuming them in a suffocating embrace. The shadows surged forward, closing in, thick like oil. Emily pressed against the wall, lungs burning, and seized the moment to look closer at Sarah. "Breathe, baby. We can do this together." But there was an ominous sound: the scraping of nails against the floor, a chilling reminder that in this battle for their souls, they were far from victory. And just like that, a thought struck Emily like a thunderbolt. The small, unyielding light of the front porch flickered back into view. She knew without question what drew its power: it was her love for Sarah, a light this darkness could never extinguish. "Sarah, hold on tight," she shouted, adrenaline surging. But could love really shatter the cold web of terror that surrounded them? The answer loomed as they darted toward the door, just as the shadows lunged, hungry for their escape. Would they find the strength to break free? Would the light hold its ground against what pursued them? They sprinted toward the door, every inch toward the light feeling like a fight against a tide of despair. The shadows whipped around their legs, tendrils of darkness clawing at Emily as she pulled Sarah closer. They had to reach the porch, that sliver of light was their only hope. "Faster!" Emily's voice cut through the air, raw with urgency. The icy breath of the woman brushed against them, an invitation to surrender. Sarah stumbled, almost falling, but Emily tightened her grip, yanking her upward. The creaking of the house seemed to grow, with the very walls moaning in protest. They reached the door, and just as it loomed ahead, the darkness surged forward as if it had come to life, swallowing anything in its path. Emily shoved against the door, screaming as it grated upon its frame. "Open, damn it!" she cried, pushing harder, the metal cold against her palms while shadows coiled around her. The woman's laughter echoed, drowning out Emily's heartbeat. "Come back," the woman crooned, each word laced with venomous allure. "You can't escape me." The door resisted. Emily kicked at it, desperation fueling her. Suddenly, a crack splintered open. Sunlight slashed into the room, breaking the shadow's oppressive grasp. A moment of clarity washed over her. Was it the love for Sarah? The power behind the light? "Now!" she shouted, shoving at the door with all her might. It burst open, and they stumbled out into the chill of the evening air, the shadows hissing around them like 1,000 scorned spirits. But freedom came at a price. Emily felt sickened as the door slammed shut behind them. The shadows pressed against the wood, writhing, gnashing as if they were defending their territory, unwilling to relinquish their prize. "Mom!" Sarah pulled at her hand, eyes wide with terror and disbelief. "What was that?" "I don't know." Panic tightened around Emily's chest, but she forced herself to stay calm, glancing around, searching for a sign of safety. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, and the night air held a sharp chill that gnawed at their skin. Beneath the porch light, the darkness melted away, but the woman was still there, her silhouette outlined against the dimness, both impossibly beautiful and terrifying. "You cannot run from what you've invited in, Emily," she hissed, her voice a whisper that sliced through the night. Emily turned, clenching Sarah's hand tighter. "We need to go now." They ran down the steps, the gravel crunching beneath their feet, but the woman's presence lingered, her promise hanging in the air like a shroud. "Every shadow cannot wait to welcome you back," the woman taunted, laughter bubbling, sharp like ice. As they bolted, Emily scanned their surroundings, nothing but the moonlit road branching out into the dark. They could scramble to the car, but what if the woman followed them? "Mom, what does she mean?" Sarah asked, genuine fear trembling in her voice. Emily took a breath, her heart pounding. She's lying, but doubt crept in, coiling around her thoughts. Was it truly a lie? She felt the weight of foreboding settle on her shoulders. "Get in the car," she commanded, pushing Sarah ahead as she scrambled into the driver's seat, fumbling for the keys. Fear clawed at her throat as she felt the icy fingers of anticipation tighten behind her. Suddenly, the wind howled, lifting pebbles from the road, swirling them into a chaotic dance. The headlights flickered, sputtering in the dark as if they were fighting for their lives against the encroaching shadows. "Please," Emily whispered, praying for a moment of peace in the storm gathering around them, but then came the sound, deafening and dread-laden. A thud on the trunk, a low rumble of disquiet reverberated through the metal. They both froze, eyes locked in wide-eyed terror. The woman's voice echoed from within the darkness, "You can't escape. I will always find you." The engine struggled to turn, and just before it roared to life, Emily felt the car shake, almost tossing them off their seats. "Go, go, go!" Sarah screamed, panic lacing her words. Emily slammed her foot on the gas, tires screeching in protest as they tore down the road. But the weight of the darkness clung to them, a relentless specter riding alongside, whispering, weaving chilling tales of a fate they couldn't avoid. As they sped away, Emily glanced in the rearview mirror, dread swelling in her chest. The woman stood in their wake, resolved, her smile serene and unspeakably horrible. What were they running from? What had they truly left behind? In the depths of the night, one thing became achingly clear: this was only the beginning. And a new horror awaited them just down the road. The engine roared, the speedometer climbing too quickly for Emily's comfort. Darkness cradled the car around them, and with every turn of the wheels, Emily felt the shadows clawing at her mind, feeding on her fear. They were out of that wretched house, but the nightmare didn't end. "Where are we going?" Sarah's voice trembled, a fragile thread in the thickening silence. Emily's knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. "Anywhere but here." But was it enough? The road stretched endlessly ahead, seemingly swallowed by the encroaching night. Trees loomed like sentinels, their gnarled branches reaching for the car like skeletal hands. Emily flinched as wind twisted through the leaves, creating whispers that echoed the woman's cruel laughter. "Mom, I'm scared, just hold on tight." The headlights illuminated the gravel that led them deeper into the woods. Emily fought down her rising panic. Each bump on the pockmarked road felt like a pulse of the darkness that chased them, a reminder that they weren't truly free. Then it happened. A flicker of movement caught her eye. She glanced into the rearview mirror. Nothing but the unsettling sense of being watched clung thickly in the air. "What if she follows us?" Sarah asked, trembling. Emily's heart sank at her daughter's words. What if? Just focus on the road. The comfort of her voice didn't reach them. A shiver slithered down her spine, chilling her insides. Suddenly, the headlights caught a figure standing on the edge of the road. Emily's heart raced as she jerked the wheel, her breath hitching. "Did you see that?" "Mom!" Sarah screamed, eyes wide with terror. "Just a deer, maybe," Emily whispered to herself, but dread crawled along her skin. Another thud echoed. Panic surged again. Something slammed against the back of the car, and the entire vehicle lurched forward, tires skidding across the gravel. "Step on it!" Sarah cried, eyes darting to the rear. Emily knew that something had struck them, a firm impact that felt deliberate. The woman Emily's chest tightened. The thought of her pursuing them turned panic into something deeper. Stars erupted in front of her eyes as she focused ahead. She slammed the gas pedal, but the engine protested, sputtering. "Please!" she begged, her voice breaking. "Don't fail me now." The darkness thickened, tugging insistently at the edges of her sanity. The break in the trees offered a glimpse of an old, cracked sign ahead, "Dead Man's Hollow." A warning. The shadows danced menacingly, and Emily pressed on with a primal urge to escape. But as they raced along, the air turned heavy, taut with dread. Peering into the side mirror, Emily thought she saw her, a shadow passing swiftly, a fleeting figure darting between the trees, always just out of reach. "Mom! Something's coming." Before Emily could react, a flash erupted from the forest. A blur of darkness mimicked the woman's shape, rushing towards them. "No! No!" Emily braked hard. The car spun, metal shrieking as it collided with something unseen. Everything went dark for a moment, silence falling like a shroud. When she opened her eyes, they were still in the car, but the woods felt suffocating now, an eerie quiet settling around them. "Are you okay, Sarah?" I don't know." Emily's hands shook as she glanced around. The headlights flickered, revealing nothing, only dark shadows that seemed to breathe around them. It whispered promises to return. Then Emily spotted it again, right there, on the edge of the forest. A haunting smile painted across the woman's face, serene and confident. "You cannot run from what you've invited in." Emily suddenly felt a cold sweat break out across her forehead. They had entered the heart of darkness, and the true horror was yet to come. "What do we do now?" Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper, error laced with a lingering hope for salvation. Emily stared into the trepidation surrounding them, dread wrapping around her heart like a vice. Maybe we go back." With a shiver coursing through her, the road behind them beckoned. Her hands clenched harder as she faced the undeniable reality. The fight for survival wasn't over, just beginning, and the woman was already inside their minds. But what awaited them when they turned around? Would they find an exit or merely step deeper into a nightmare? Emily's heart raced as she turned the wheel in the opposite direction, almost unwillingly. Every instinct screamed to speed away, but the darkness behind them felt like a suffocating blanket. Could they truly outrun the terror? "Mom! What if she should?" Emily hissed, glancing at Sarah, whose eyes were brimming with tears. "I need to think." The engine sputtered, groaning like a wounded beast as she shifted into reverse. Panic clawed at her throat. The headlights danced over the path they had just taken, revealing nothing but shadows and the creeping trees, forming a twisted corridor in the night. Just keep looking," Emily urged, both to Sarah and to herself. The hair on the back of her neck prickled. Something was wrong. The quiet before them was too absolute. A tense second stretched into eternity, pressing down on her with the weight of impending doom. Had they truly escaped? Or was the worst yet to come? Suddenly, a figure darted across the road. Emily's breath hitched. It was the woman. "Mom, look out!" With a gut-wrenching lurch, Emily slammed her foot on the brakes, sending them skidding, heart pounding, into the gravel. Dust clouded the headlights, and inside the car, the world felt like it spun. What was that? Sarah squeaked, eyes darting nervously as they came to a stop. I don't know, Emily stuttered, struggling to catch her breath. Then they heard it. A soft laughing, like fingernails scraping against a chalkboard. It slithered through the trees, brushing against their skin, chilling them to the bone. The woman was toying with them now, enjoying the fear seeping out like vapor in the cold air. Mom, please let us just go. Sarah pleaded, her voice trembling uncontrollably. No. Emily shouted, surprising herself with the force of her denial. We can't give in to her. We need to be strong. Yet, doubt gnawed at her mind. What if strength meant something darker? The surrounding woods loomed ominously, shadows flickering like live threats. Suddenly, the headlights flickered, momentarily shutting off before dimly relighting. The engine sputtered once again, twisting Emily's stomach with fear. She could feel the relentless grip of claustrophobia creeping up on her. Mom. Fingers shaking, Emily turned the ignition. The sound of the engine sputtering filled the air with dread. It refused to roar back to life in defiance of the dark. Sweat trickled down her spine, feeling as cold as the grave. Come on. Come on. She begged, her voice reaching a near hysteria as she pumped the gas pedal fruitlessly. A figure stepped forward from the shadows more imposing and ethereal than before, her smile widening with malicious glee. Emily could see the glint of something in her hand, and it twisted her stomach further. I told you, you cannot run from what you've invited in. The woman's voice melted into the air like honey, sweet yet poisonous, as she approached with a predatory grace. Stay back. Emily screamed, the horror in her voice slicing through the chilling laughter. Mom! What do we do? Sarah whimpered, hands balled into fists, eyes frantic. Emily's mind raced. They had been foolish to think they could escape so easily. The choice to go back came with its own set of horrors. They were trapped, circling a dark fate, as the shadows closed in around them. Drive! Emily broke out, the command erupting from her throat like a battle cry. Drive forward. The car groaned again, but twisted metal is wrought with desperation. Suddenly, headlights reflected off something, an opening, a break in the trees ahead. It seemed to beckon them, a glimmer of fragile hope. Hold on! She yelled, slamming the gear back into drive, heart hammering as she pushed down on the pedal. As they surged forward, everything behind them seemed to scream. She could hear the woman's laughter intertwining with the rev of the engine, wrapping them in a macabre symphony. But what lay ahead? The shadows receded momentarily, revealing a fork in the path, the right path illuminated by their headlights, while the left remained shrouded in darkness. Which way would they choose, and would either option truly lead them to safety or closer to the depths of despair? Emily's hands shook violently on the steering wheel, sweat mingling with the terror coursing through her. The decision loomed over them like a looming storm cloud, dark and heavy. The right path shimmered faintly ahead, appearing almost inviting, while the left wrapped itself in impenetrable gloom, as if it promised secrets best left untouched. Mom! Please, just go right. Sarah begged, her voice quivering, eyes straining for any sign of escape. Just give me a second. Emily snapped, her heart racing faster than the engine sputtering weakly beneath her. The laughter still echoed behind them, a mocking symphony that gnawed at her resolve. Instinctively, she glanced at the rearview mirror, her breath caught in her throat. Nothing. Just darkness. Go left. The urgency in Sarah's voice surged like a wave of panic. We can't stay here. Are you crazy? Emily shouted, momentarily drowning in fear. You want to drive straight into that darkness? In there, Sarah insisted, pointing wildly to the left. I saw something. I swear. The shadows seemed to ripple like an unseen tide, and for a brief moment, fear warred with doubt. Could she trust her daughter's instincts? Or would that lead them into deepening despair? The engine groaned again, sputtering as if sharing in her hesitation. Time slowed to a crawl. Emily took a breath, steadying herself. There was no time for second-guessing. Okay. She maneuvered the wheel, angling towards the left. As they veered close to the shadows, a gut-wrenching chill seeped into the car, pulling at her skin like cold fingers. Trees towered on either side, their branches like skeletal hands reaching out for them. Emily's pulse thundered in her ears, merging with the rapid thud of Sarah's heart beside her. There was no going back now. In the thickening darkness, Emily could almost make out silhouettes, whispers lingering just beyond her vision. Shapes that seemed to slink away the moment she tried to focus on them. A rising dread filled her. She felt eyes watching her, studying her every move. "What's happening?" Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know, I just need the car to work." She stomped on the gas, desperate. The engine coughed loudly but then roared to life, the headlights scorching the darkness in front of them. As they jolted forward, the road opened up into a clearing, revealing an old abandoned gas station, its sign flickering dimly like a dying breath. "What if they know we're here?" Emily murmured, instinctively drawing closer to Sarah, who clasped her hands tightly together. The woman's laughter filled the air again, closer this time, like a sinuous serpent wrapping itself around their courage. Chills crawled up Emily's spine as she scanned the area, searching for any sign of the twisted figure. "Mom, we have to get away from here," Sarah urged, her eyes wide with panic. And just then, from the depths of the shadows, another figure emerged, tall and draped in darkness. Its face, obscured, yet framed with a shadowy crown of unkempt hair. The figure stood motionless before the gas station, letting out a low growl that if Emily had felt fear before, it was dwarfed now by pure terror. The air grew thick, a suffocating miasma. She knew they were being hunted. "Drive, just drive," Sarah whispered, clutching her mother's arm tightly. Heart racing, Emily glanced over the space, no escape to be found. The gas station loomed like a tomb under the moonlight. "Mom!" Sarah's voice was sharp, filled with urgency. "What do we do now?" Emily's mind whirled with panic, but in that spiraling chaos, one thought broke through: they couldn't linger here. The shadows would consume them if they did. "Hold on!" she screamed, throwing the car into reverse again. The tires screeched against gravel as she turned the wheel sharply, the distant laughter amplifying as they fled, but as they moved away, a wrenching realization gripped Emily: something had been left behind. Something precious, forgotten in the grip of terror. Would they make it back out of this hell? Or had they only traded one danger for another? The headlights bounced off the dark, and Emily felt that twisted fate was fast approaching, but they had to keep moving, even as the shadows gave chase. The tires screamed against the gravel as Emily spun the car around, heart racing, the shadows constricting like a snake ready to strike. Each jolt of movement pulled them deeper into the web of darkness that surrounded the clearing. Dread wrapped around her throat, making it hard to breathe. "Mom, please, go faster." Sarah's voice crackled with distress, pulling Emily back from the depths of her own fear. She pressed the accelerator, the engine roaring defiantly into the night. Yet, the laughter followed them, a twisted, mocking serenade echoing through the trees. The road was bumpy, filled with twists and turns, as if it conspired against them. Emily's knuckles turned white around the steering wheel. She risked a glance at her daughter, whose face was a mask of terror, wide-eyed and pale. Fear clawed at Emily. "We can't let them catch us, not now." Ahead, the path opened up, but so did the darkness. The shadows seemed to pulse with a life of their own, swirling and distorting. The gas station faded, but fleeting glimpses caught in the headlights revealed more figures emerging from the shadows. Each one seemed taller, darker, and somehow, hungrier. "What are they?" Sarah whimpered, sinking deeper into her seat, trying to become one with the fabric. "Just keep your eyes closed," Emily choked out. "We'll get through this." But as her voice faltered, a shiver of doubt snaked through her, the laughter beckoned from behind them, an insidious echo that felt both promised and threatening. It turned her stomach. Desperately, Emily scanned for an exit, but the encroaching blackness pressed in like a suffocating shroud, blocking any salvation. Suddenly, with a terrifying crack, a tree branch broke against the side of the car, shaking it violently. "Mom!" Sarah screamed, her voice ringing like a bell of warning. "I'm trying." Emily yelled back, and with a surge of adrenaline, she swerved, narrowly avoiding a larger tree. But as she did, something shifted in the shadows. A figure darted across the road, too fast for her to comprehend. "Did you see that?" Sarah gasped, pointing with a trembling finger. Emily's heart raced as she tried to find her bearings, panic twisting her thoughts. "Just keep your head down," she shouted, pushing the gas pedal to the floor. The headlights barely pierced the thickening dark, but she could hear them, breathless, low growls that vibrated the air around them. It was as if the very shadows were alive, hungry for a bite. Another shadow lunged, this one too close to the car. Emily slammed on the brakes, the tires squealing as she skidded to a stop. It was now or never. Heart pounding, she forced herself to find courage. "We need to get out of here. We can't stay in this car any longer." "Where do we go?" Sarah whimpered, eyes darting around wildly. "Anywhere but here." They flung open the doors, the night closing around them like an iron grip. A cacophony of rustling leaves surrounded them, and the laughter grew louder, more mocking. They dashed towards a grove of trees, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they ran, their breaths came in sharp gasps. The full-on panic morphed into a sense of urgency that urged them forward. Emily stumbled, catching herself on the rough bark. As she turned back, heaving, they saw a luminous figure standing in the clearing, an outline against darkness, grinning with a bizarre serenity. "Who are you?" Sarah cried out, terror spilling into her voice again. The figure tilted its head, laughter spilling forth, slicing through the night like a jagged edge. Emily grabbed Sarah's arm. "Run!" But the sound of footsteps thrummed around them, quick, relentless. The laughter erupted again, mixing with their frantic heartbeats. The surroundings distorted, the trees seemed to lean in, shadows danced maniacally, revealing nothing but obliteration in their wake. Suddenly, Emily felt a tug, a pull in the direction of the figure. It was like a siren's call, beckoning her into a swirling abyss. "Don't look back!" she screamed, feeling the darkness reaching out. But it was too late. Curiosity gripped her. The figure stepped forward, the grin widening, revealing teeth too sharp, too eager. Emily felt her breath hitch in her throat. "What are you?" she whispered, but the figure only laughed again, the sound morphing into something more sinister as they scrambled deeper into the woods, the chilling laugh reverberating in their ears. And then, as they raced onward, a thought flashed through her mind, a realization that struck harder than any fear. What if this was exactly where they were meant to be? What if the darkness wanted them to find something? A shiver of cold realization washed over her, and as they pushed forward, the shadows began to close in again like hungry wolves. Had they opened a door, or had it been there all along? The night pressed on, giving no answers, leaving only questions hanging in the air like a dark omen. Emily and Sarah paused in the thick of the woods, their breaths ragged, their hearts pounding in rhythm with the oppressive stillness enveloping them. Fear, once paralyzing, began to morph into something else. Something ignited within Emily, sparking a flicker of defiance amidst the shadows. This chase through darkness had tested their limits, but as she gripped Sarah's hand, determination surged like a bolt of lightning. "Mom! We can't let her take us." Sarah's voice quivered, tugging at Emily's resolve. "No, sweetheart. We won't let her. Not now." Emily's voice felt steadier than it had moments before. She could feel the weight of shadows pulling, threatening to pull her back into despair, but she wouldn't allow that. "Not again," Turning her eyes toward the clearing, Emily realized the shadows around them weren't merely obstacles, they were echoes of the woman's past, reflections of those lost in the depths of darkness. This was her domain, but Emily recognized something even more vital: they weren't without power. "Sarah," she said, rallying her daughter's attention. "Think of something bright. Something that makes you feel safe." The flicker of panic in Sarah's eyes began to soften, replaced by memories of laughter and love, a glint of light against the looming darkness. "My teddy bear," she murmured, her grip tightening around Emily's hand. Yes. That warmth, that joy. The affirmation ignited a light within Emily as she held on to Sarah. "We can push past her. We're stronger than the shadows." Glimmers of hope rippled through her, almost palpable, illuminating their surroundings like stars breaking through a stormy sky. She clutched Sarah's hand tighter and began to walk, then run, her voice rising above the cacophony of laughter that surrounded them. "Stay with me. We are not afraid." With each step forward, Emily felt an undercurrent of energy, each footfall erasing the boundaries the darkness sought to create. The shadows recoiled, shrinking back from the light they summoned, as though his defiance scorched the very air. "Mom, look!" Sarah exclaimed, her voice blooming with a mix of awe and relief. Emily glanced to the side, where, in the distance, a familiar glow slipped through the trees, a light cutting through the fog. It was the path, the road leading them back toward safety. "Yes. We can make it," she shouted, urgency bursting ahead of fear. Together, they bolted toward the light pouring from the cracked edges of trees, illuminating the world around them. As they surged forward, the laughter morphed, rippling into frustrated howls, spiraling into discontent. Running felt exhilarating, a pulse of life carrying them as shadows screeched and twirled behind, their snatching grips failing. Closer, closer, the light grew, and with it, the whispers of fear dulled into mere echoes, and then it happened: a surge of air blasted them, as if pushed by an unseen force. They burst through the tree-line and onto the shoulder of the road. Emily could hardly believe it. The gas station stood just ahead, flickering, but alive, a beacon against the lingering darkness. "Mom! We did it!" Sarah cheered, voice full of relief, her energy rekindling a vital warmth. "Keep moving," Emily urged, leading them toward the door, urgency fueling their steps. With one last look, she cast her eyes behind, catching a glimpse of the faint shadows recoiling into the thick of the forest, their presence less formidable now. The woman lingered there, her silhouette just a shadow of her former self, growing dimmer under the weight they had borne together. They flung open the gas station door, and Emily ushered Sarah inside, turning the lock with shaking hands. The few flickering lights overhead flickered defiantly around them, and for the first time that night, relief washed over her. Hugging tightly to the comfort of a warm embrace, Emily slumped against the wall, eyes closed, and took a deep breath. "We're safe." She glanced at her daughter, who stood breathless, but alive with the thrill of survival. They weren't just alive for today together, they had conquered the darkness. Weaving through fear and sorrow, choosing love and light. A new dawn began to form in the back of their minds, the promise of safety ringing louder than the echoes of their terror. "Let us go home," Emily whispered, pride and relief swelling in her heart as they turned toward the brightening horizon. The shadows had lost, yet secrets lay entwined in the depth of the woods, whispering stories of those who ventured too close. But she inhaled the dawn. The world was theirs for the taking. Now, it's your turn. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.